The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And we're thrilled that you're here with us today. We're going to be live with you for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. What does that mean? That means that nothing's off the table. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to have more information about? What is going to help you to get to the progress that you want to see in your life? We welcome all of you. We know that a lot of you that are out there that are watching are parents, that some of you are teachers, some of you are practitioners, and there are a lot of you who are interested in becoming practitioners, and maybe there's some extended family that's out there as well. We have grandmas and aunts and uncles that are watching. We welcome all of you. You all have a place at this table that we're setting for you. You're part of this community, this wonderful big spectrum of a community that we all belong to. You all get to have a voice, and we want to be able to help all of you to get to the progress that you are seeking. That's why we're here. That's what this entire show is about. And that's why the show is meant to be interactive. We want for you to participate with us, to let us know. I always say I gave up mind reading to be an autism mother. So I cannot read your mind. You have to tell me what it is that you're looking for, what's impeding the progress that you want to see in your life. There's lots of different ways to interact with us here at the show. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, so much to do. Please check out our blog. Please sign up for our newsletter, but you can be watching the live show there too, or you can watch recently recorded live shows in addition to the ways that Kelby is showing you. Also on our homepage is the live feature, which is to the side of the screen where you can watch the show. You'll see a box that says your comments, your questions. If you put your cursor there and start typing, hit enter, it will show up here on my screen, and you and I can be having a conversation, but more importantly than that, you can be having a conversation with any of the guests that we have on our show, and we have some wonderful experts that are going to be with us here today because it's Thursday, and you know I love Thursday. So we hope that you will participate. Couple of things you should know about participating on that live feature. It's totally free. It's totally anonymous. We don't know who you are or where you are, and that's a wonderful thing, so that you don't have to feel any pressure about asking a question. I know a lot of times we feel like, what if that's a stupid question? And of course, there is no such thing as a stupid question, right? But sometimes, for whatever reason, you feel funny about asking it, so don't worry. Nobody knows who you are when you ask it. Perfect forum to do that. But if you do want us to get back to you and you want to let us know who you are, you can include that information. We won't share that with the folks at home unless you expressly tell us that we can. And we will never share contact with how to get a hold of you. We can't do that, right? I also want to tell you that what I also love about our live feature is that it's so simple. That you just put the cursor there, you type, you hit enter. There is no username, there is no password, there's nothing to remember. Nobody asks you for a credit card. There's no free trial membership that you end up getting paid for later. You have to pay for later on. It's just free. There is no login. Just use it. And I defend that hotly when ever anybody says, oh, we should make it someday it could change, but right now it's just totally free. It's totally anonymous. Please utilize that because that was really important to make that available for you. Now, why? Why was that really important? And the other thing that I always like to remind you at the start of the show is that we have experts on the show, but I'm not one of them. Let's be abundantly clear about that. I chair the desk here with a great deal of passion because I'm an autism mom. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5, and he's now 11.5. We just recently commemorated the day. It happened just a couple of days ago that it was the anniversary of when my son was diagnosed with autism. And I recall what it felt like on that day. And pretty much I recall how it felt every day since then till now. Lot of feelings. But we got so lucky. We got so lucky, and we worked so hard. I do like to remind myself and everybody of that we worked really hard to get where we are, and we continue to work really hard to get where we want to go. And I want to let you know that wherever you are, our kids are all different, they're all of different abilities, but wherever you are, there's progress that's available to you, more than you got yesterday, coming to you today and tomorrow. If you're willing to ask questions and listen to questions and listen to answers and then put action behind it, there is progress that you can make. And that, my friends, is why I'm here, because I'm so passionate about making sure that anybody who's looking for hope, anybody who's looking for answers, has a place to go to find it, regardless of where you live in the world, regardless of how much money in your bank account you have, because that has nothing to do with how you feel about your child. It just doesn't. So we try to make an environment in which everybody has an opportunity to hear the information they need and to be heard honestly. So take advantage of it. Use this program. That's why we fight for it to be here for you, because I know what that would have meant to me when we were going and what it means to me now. Okay. So we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is another thing that we fought really hard for, I believe in this wholeheartedly. When we started out on the journey of autism, I didn't want to know about the jargon. I thought it was craziness, and I would say to people, stop using those terms. If general people don't know how to use them, why are you using them? Speak to us in plain English. And I still think that's important for parents who are just starting out to be spoken to in plain English. But I do think it is our responsibility, as I learn, to learn these terms and know what they mean so that we can use them to our biggest, best benefit to get to that progress. So we take on different words, different phrases, different acronyms, and we try to shed light on them. We give you an actual definition, and then we give you a working definition that hopefully makes more sense. So from time to time, we cycle back through and use words that we've done before. So our jargon term for today is ABA. This is something that we talk about a lot, and every once in a while we get new viewers. I want to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about. So our actual definition of ABA, you ready? ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. ABA is the application of the principles of learning and motivation from behavior analysis. Oh, well, that's crystal clear now. It employs procedures and technology derived from scientifically demonstrated principles of behavior to increase socially significant behaviors and decrease unwanted or inappropriate behaviors. Now, I just want to say that I have crossed over to the dark side, because I read this now and I go, yes, of course, that's exactly what it means. But I remember the first time I looked this up, I went, what in the heck does that mean? They use the exact same words and they just rearrange them 12 times, and I'm no closer to knowing what it is we're talking about and why is this important to me. Well, the truth of the matter is that I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say to you, I think that ABA saved our collective lives in my family. It is amazing. So what is it really for those of us who don't understand this definition? Our working definition, ABA is a proven method of increasing teaching desired behavior and reducing unwanted behavior. Increasing or teaching desired behavior and reducing unwanted behavior. So we can get all emotional and talk about all the symptoms of autism and all the behaviors that are happening in autism. But basically, when you get through all the emotion and the fear and everything, you basically can put things in two different columns. And a parent can say, I'm so frightened because my child isn't making eye contact. Okay, well, that's a skill we want to increase. And they say, and I'm frightened because my child is biting me. Okay, that's a behavior that we want to decrease. I'm afraid that my child isn't going to be able to read. Okay, we want to increase a bunch of skills in order to get them to be able to read. I am concerned because my child doesn't respond when I say his name. Okay, well, that's a behavior that we want to increase. And my child is throwing things. Oh, a behavior that we want to decrease. I want my child to be able to sleep. Oh, a behavior I want to increase. Do you see what I'm saying? It all comes down to what do we want to increase and what do we want to decrease. And if you could just change the dial on those things, what would your life look like? And what would your child's life look like? What would everyone's life look like? And ABA is a very scientifically proven method of being able to get to that quickly and efficiently, increasing behaviors that we want to see more of, and skills, and decreasing behaviors that we want to see less of. It is amazing. I have referred to ABA as the autism miracle in my living room. And I do that with no shame whatsoever. It changed our lives. Quality ABA for an intervention for autism is the gold standard of treatment for autism. It has been the gold standard of treatment for autism for multiple decades. The Surgeon General has referred to it as the gold standard of treatment. It's so important, and now more insurance funding is covering. It's so important for people to take advantage of that and get it. It is also equally, if not more important, that people make sure that they're getting quality ABA, because not everyone is. Some people are getting watered down, doesn't get it done ABA. So we do talk about ABA on the show for the reason that it is so effective, and we talk about it to let people know what quality ABA looks like, what can happen when quality ABA is on board, and how to ensure that someone gets the funding for it and carries through on it. It's so important that we all be involved in making sure that all individuals with autism are given the option of getting good quality ABA in the amount that we know to be effective. ABA, it's miraculous. Okay, so, and that's the reason why we talk about it so much. We also always start off our show with a question that we have for you every day. And so my question for you today is, what are you willing to fight for? Now, I know that's a loaded question, right? But honestly, when you pare everything down, this is what it comes down to. What are you willing to fight for? I mentioned on Tuesday that I had a parent who wrote to me and said, you know, can you tell me what to do? And that I said, yeah, yeah, I can. Here's the phone call that I want you to make, and this is how you're going to find out whether you have funding. And it scared her. And believe me, I understand that, that, you know, there was the thing of, oh, I don't think that's going to work out. But basically what I was saying to this parent is, you got to get ABA on board. You got to get good quality ABA on board. And the first step in doing that is knowing whether or not you have the funding. And the reason why I started with that question is that I didn't know what to tell her to fight for, right? And that's the first question along the way, is if you can determine, and it's very easy to be able to figure out whether you have funding or not. It's basically a phone call. And but then, you know, which arena are you in? Are you fighting to make sure that you get enough services, and fighting to get the paperwork done, and fighting to rearrange your life so that you can withstand this amount of therapy in your life? Or are you fighting to get the funding? They're two entirely different fights, but you got to know what you're willing to fight for, and you got to know what it is that you have to fight for in order to start. I will tell you that there are moments that happen in everybody's life when you have to make decisions. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I do recall the moment in which I realized, oh my gosh, and maybe it wasn't just one moment. I'm kidding myself here. There's probably been thousands of moments since my son was diagnosed that I realized, oh, I'm going to have to fight. I'm going to have to fight for this. I got to tell you, this is the best thing in the world to fight for is good quality ABA. There are some other fights along the way that I picked that I was like, later on, that wasn't worth it. That wasn't worth it. But good quality ABA is absolutely worth fighting for. As time goes on, you know, what we need to fight for and what we're willing to fight for might change, but what are you willing to fight for? I I don't have to fight for good quality ABA for my son anymore because he graduated from his ABA program. I have different fights to fight now. And one of the fights that I fight is for all of you to get access to good quality ABA, because I can't live in this world and know that my son got the help that he needed and realize that your child isn't. I can't. So I'm willing to fight for you to get that. Are you willing to fight to get the good quality ABA? We're going to check a little later on our Facebook to see what, in fact, you are willing to fight for. I'm so interested to know, because you know what I always say, together we can do this. But I got to know what you're willing to fight for first. Now, we always have a topic of the week, and it goes hand in hand with our question. I'm all emotional already today. Our topic this week is fighting for what you believe in. And by the way, that's open-ended, that, you know, you may feel that your child needs something else, and I firmly believe that whatever else your child needs, that your gut says that they need, I want to honor that, but I want you to pair some good quality ABA with that. And we talk about a lot more than just ABA here, but I think because it's the gold standard of treatment, I want to make sure that everybody gets good education about what it is and the option to get it. Then if you decide that you're going to do something else or pair it with something else, pairing it with something else, I think, is what's really effective. Okay, but I support you in whatever it is that you need to do, because if you're going to fight for it, what you believe in, that's the key. But we got to be willing to fight, right? See, I'm emotional. I got to get my tissue. Anyway, okay. Here's some of the different things that we have scheduled on our show today. Dr. Adel Najdowski is here with us. We've been talking about recovery this week, that R word that I know a lot of you are skittish about, but we're looking forward to I've asked her to come in and give us a clinician's view of what recovery is, what it looks like. We'll have some updates on some autism news for you, and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is here with us this morning. He'll be with us in the second hour. He's going to be answering your questions. We've already had some questions come in, but please keep them coming in on the live feature, or you can email us or tweet us, however, or Facebook us, however you would like to get a hold of us. We're going to take a break and be back with Dr. Adel Najdowski, so stick with us.
Riley has high-functioning autism, and I'd say I noticed somewhere between 9 months and a year. Looking back now, I can tell you everything. I mean, there was no pointing, there was no shared experiences, speech was not coming, the interactive play was not coming, those things weren't happening. You know, you go to the pediatrician, they tell you, well, sometimes boys are slow or things might take a while to come along, but it still wasn't happening. And right when he hit the 2-year-old room in preschool is when the wheels fell off the wagon. That's when we got some intervention. That's when we figured out, you know, how are we going to address this problem. The first thing I did was I got a mentor, because there's no book on what to do with your autistic child. I mean, there's many books, but each path is individual. So I got a mentor, a really nice woman named Marlene. She has a daughter with Asperger's, and she told me, go to a psychiatrist so you can have your child fully diagnosed and a rock-solid diagnosis that can't really be attacked. Call CARD and do whatever they tell you to do. That was probably the thing she talked about the most. Get in touch with CARD. She actually put me in touch with Evelyn from CARD, and calling CARD was like amazing, because I really felt like things were finally going to be okay. We were going to get the help we needed.
We tried a number of different things before we could get into CARD, and you could really see the difference in the data keeping, really addressing what his issues were, whereas the other places we had been, it seemed pointless to me.
We've talked about this, and I feel like we met a lot of really nice, well-intentioned people.
Right.
And then when we got to CARD, we met a lot of really nice people who could help us because they had the experience. It was ABA, which I think is the only way to go with your child if you're trying to overcome autism. And if you go to CARD, the people are so qualified, and there's so much of a database on how to approach this. It's just like they come right in, and we started off with, let's have Riley sit down for 2 seconds, because he couldn't even get that. And we worked on baby steps until now he's in 1st grade and he's working at grade level. So it just starts with baby steps, and it keeps working on, because They have a way to approach every single problem, every single tantrum, every single thing you're going to come up with. They have a way to approach it and help you get through it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed, like at our clinic, we'll be having a specific problem and how good they are, all of them, the therapist and your team leader, at coming up with a solution, something to try, and it almost always works. Whatever the particular behavior you're trying to deal with, they're really good at them. They know the answers.
He likes a lot of stuff I think regular 7-year-olds like. He likes to swim.
He loves to swim.
He's a fish. Likes to ride a scooter, loves Toy Story, loves playing on the iPad.
Loves Justin Bieber.
Thought you all be mine.
Good job, buddy.
High five.
High five.
High five.
Yeah.
CARD's been good about encouraging us to do things that maybe wouldn't occur to us, like him learning to ride a bike was really them saying, hey, it's time, let's do this, and helping us do that. And so he can ride a bike. He's still working on the brakes a little bit, but you know, he can pedal a bike. We can go to Balboa Park and he'll ride happy as a clam along the bike path.
If you think something's wrong, it's not about you. Don't bury your head in the sand. Go get help, because the help is out there to make your life and your child's life just so much better. And if you're lucky enough to get in with CARD, I can't even tell you what a difference it's made in our lives from 4 years ago. Just the quality of life we have, the quality of life Riley has, the progress he's made from being a child who wanted to stay in his room and play Toy Story and line up his Toy Story dolls all day, to a first grader who's working at grade level. It couldn't have happened without CARD intervention, without ABA, and without all the wonderful people we met there.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Adel Najdowski. Welcome back to the show. So thrilled to have you here. Dr. Najdowski is a wonderful expert in the field of autism. She was one of the co-creators of Skills, and you have many different things that you do, but one of the things that I always like to remind people, you are somebody who treats individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And you're a wonderful resource for all of us. I know personally you're a wonderful resource for me, and I enjoy any time I get an opportunity to talk with you about these subjects, because you help us to get to the progress. You really do. And I have shared with you before that I'm not the only person who behind your back calls you the Queen of EF.
Oh, really?
It's
now
true.
you've got other people saying it.
Other people say it. We call you the Queen of F, which is executive functions, for those of you who don't know. And just last night I was talking to somebody who said, I just am so unorganized, I need to, and I said, oh, you need to talk to Dr. Najdowski. You need to set up a little appointment with Dr. Najdowski. She can show you apps and things. And I think at some point we need to do a segment just on that, about, for the parents, things for them to help them be organized.
Yeah, I love being organized.
She's the queen of it, ladies and gentlemen. She can key you into apps that to help you to organize things. I was telling them about one little app on your phone. They were like, I need an appointment with her. It's life-changing. And I am a better parent. I always say this, I'm a better parent from, since I met you and have had an opportunity to talk with you and hear things from you and hear your expertise. I'm a better parent. But I also have changed some of the things that I do. I need to change more of them. But I changed things because of things that I've heard from you and gone, oh my gosh, I could do that differently. So we love it when you're here. We call this Real Progress with Dr. Adel. And this week I asked, because our topic is fighting for what you believe in, and one of the overreaching topics for this week has been that really incendiary term that people get very fatoots about, but recovery. Recovery from autism, and I've started saying recovering from the disabling aspects of autism. Right. Because many people have told me that they're offended when I use the term recovery, and I've said to them I can't stop talking about the concept. Right. So I would love it if you could give us a clinician's point of view about what it is that we're talking about when we say recovery.
Okay. So it's possible there's a better term for recovery, and we just haven't identified it yet. But currently, recovery from a clinician's point of view in the world of autism means that the individual is within 1 standard deviation from the mean on standardized assessments. It means that they no longer really qualify for the diagnosis of autism. So if they were to go see a professional and have one of the, gold standard assessments conducted, they would no longer actually qualify for the diagnosis. And sometimes they will actually go ahead and remove that diagnosis. And also it means going into a regular education placement without an aid. And for the most part, just being able to demonstrate, living in a way that you're indistinguishable from your peers. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you don't still maybe have little issues here or there, but everyone does.
Right.
So from a clinician's perspective, that's recovery.
Okay, I want to go back through and talk about some of the different things, though. When you say 1 standard deviation from the mean on standardized testing, for those of us who aren't very familiar, what does that actually show up as?
Right, so you get a score like on an IQ test, for example, and maybe what would be considered like typical would be 100.
Okay.
And so 1 standard deviation would be about 15 points below that, so anywhere between like 85 and 100.
Okay. All right, and so it could be an IQ test, it could be something else, just some sort of standardized testing.
A lot of times it's IQ, and then in addition to that, there might be other tests done, like adaptive tests, such as the Vineland and things like that, like a battery of assessments maybe done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So saying that you're in the mix, you're in the neighborhood of...
Yeah, you're like within the kind of range of what would be considered typical or of someone.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're talking about individuals that at some point got a diagnosis of autism from a qualified professional, because a lot of times people say, it's interesting to me how people try to wheedle out of the person actually being, that has the designation of recovered. And what we'll hear sometimes is, well, I don't think that person actually had autism.
I hear that all the time.
It's so disconcerting to me that that's the fail-safe point that they go back to.
I know.
What's the likelihood? I mean, I guess that some people are misdiagnosed, but that seems something that's really difficult to me, to be misdiagnosed and be given an autism diagnosis. Because I know for Jem, he not only got the diagnosis, then we were forced to go get a corroborating diagnosis before we could get funding. And, then he would get tested every year and still would qualify. Are there other people that just walk into some Joe Schmo's office and get a diagnosis that isn't? Is there any basis for people to think that that's a possibility?
The reason why it would be difficult to be misdiagnosed is because, yes, I would say like a majority of the population probably under the 3 areas that they assess would maybe have a couple little things that they would go, oh, I do that.
Right.
When you look at the list of the symptoms or whatever, the behaviors. But the truth is you can't just only do 1 or 2 of these things. You have to be within all of the categories. So in order to be within all of the categories and have the correct number, that's more difficult. So I don't see how that would be happening all the time. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't happen sometimes.
Right.
There might be that kiddo who's like right on the edge. And for whatever reason, I don't know, but maybe, the person doing the diagnosis really can see that child could benefit from services. And for some reason, they're a little biased maybe, and they let them kind of squeeze in there. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and I think that there's a possibility of that happening, but I think what we see far more often is kids that they're squeakers and they're on the line. They've got things that are going on that are disabling them, but they don't fully qualify for the diagnosis. So in the past, they would have gotten the PDD-NOS. I've heard that hundreds of times from parents who said, my kid didn't quite qualify for the autism diagnosis. They got a PDD-NOS.
Right.
So, and then sometimes later on, that what happens is that person who was diagnosing only saw them for a 20-minute or a 2-hour period of time out of their life, gave them a PDD-NOS, and we see 2 years down the road that now this kid qualifies for the full diagnosis of autism. So I think that's far more common, that somebody gets underdiagnosed instead of getting overdiagnosed.
Especially if they can compensate for the weaknesses,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the likelihood that if you're only seeing somebody for 20 minutes or 2 hours, I think it's far more likely that somebody could miss a behavior that didn't come up on the criteria,
Yeah.
and the person could get underdiagnosed. Then it just so happened that the 2 hours that they came in and were seen by this trained professional, they were more on the autism spectrum during that 2 hours. That
Right.
seems unlikely.
Yeah. I hope no one's doing this within 20 minutes.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too. I think about when we went in for our first diagnosis with a developmental pediatrician, it was a 2.5 hour
Okay.
appointment. When we went for the corroborating, I think it was an hour and 45 minutes. And
Like
that-
if they're using, tests that are considered the gold standard, like the ADOS,
Right.
they have specifications and
it's lengthy.
you have to do certain things. So
Yes.
it shouldn't be possible really to even do that.
Yeah. But in any case, unlikely that these kids that are deemed recovered were misdiagnosed. And certainly all of them couldn't have been misdiagnosed.
Right.
Like statistically, I don't think that could be a possibility.
Right.
Other people like to say that they're not really recovered now. It's just that they can compensate for some things, but that's not really recovery. What do we say to that?
I would just say recovery is when someone's functioning in a way that, is indistinguishable among their peers. Because think about it, every one of their peers has little issues. Every one of us has certain things.
Yeah.
Certain things that when we talk about stereotypy or what some people call self-stimulatory behaviors, people go like, oh, wow, I, put my foot over and swing it back and forth. Or sometimes I just want to rock or whatever.
Right.
And like different people have different things, but they don't have enough symptoms across all the areas.
Yeah.
So given that, they're never going to be perfect. Like no one is perfect,
Right.
kind of thing. So,
And I always
and they might need help here and there with
Yeah.
certain things and whatever, but for the most part, they don't walk in a room and everyone goes, oh my gosh, something's wrong with that person.
Right. And I think too that when I look at all of this, that I go back to the word disorder over and over and over again. That there's that one part of the criteria, and it's different wording in the DSM-5 than it was in the DSM-4, but it comes back to that there's some sentence in it that states that these problems that the person is having have to in some way represent a disorder from them being able to access the things that they want in their life. That's what it comes down to. And if somebody finds a way of coping with it,
Yeah.
then that's no longer a disorder.
Right.
It just isn't. I mean, I have things that, like I was saying earlier, that you have helped me to see things that there were things that where I wouldn't be able to do what I wanted to do because I didn't have my executive function things together. You taught me ways to cope with those, so now I can choose to cope with them in that way if I want to, and it's that area of my life is no longer in disorder.
Yeah. I like that you just mentioned the word choose to use the skills, because
Yeah.
that's one of the things when we're working with our kids is that we're not trying to change their personality per se. We're just trying to give them the skills so that they can decide how they want to be. So if they're in a situation that's social, let's say, and they want to talk to people at a party, they can.
Yeah.
Whereas if they just kind of want to hang by themselves or with one friend, they can do that too. But they have a choice now if they want to do that or not, because they have the skills to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas
And
beforehand, they may never even had the skills to.
And I think that's an important distinction. I know there's a lot of pushback from adults who are on the autism spectrum who say, I wish people wouldn't have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And they're not huge fans of ABA, most of them either. I can think of one person in particular who, when she was younger, had a very difficult time with ABA. She had ABA at a time when it was still common that they were using aversives.
Yeah.
And she kept being told over and over again, you must do it this way, and being punished if she didn't do it this way. And for her, it is a very abusive sort of, I have to be different than who I am kind of memory.
Right.
Now, and she says, no, we should not be forcing kids to get ABA, and don't talk about recovery. It makes us all feel small. The thing that I always say, in these conversations with her is I say, you are a productive member of society who has the ability to say, this really upsets me, and write letters to people saying, this really upsets me. And I understand that what you went through is different than what our kids go through. She doesn't believe that, and I want to take her to a house and say, look, this is what it is now. It's not what you went through. And I understand why she doesn't want to do that. I do. Because for her, it's trauma. It's real. It's real. And I totally get that. But what I always say to her is, what we're trying to do is get all our kids the opportunity so that they can be as expressive as you are. For a lot of our kids, they don't have the ability to say, I don't want to do this. I don't like it when you say this. It hurts my feelings. And to write that in a letter that makes sense to an official to say, stop saying that, it bothers me.
Yeah.
We hope to get all of our kids to that point. Can you imagine what it would be like if you didn't have the ability to express that?
Right. And in some way, I wonder if ABA was at all helpful to getting her to that level, or if she would have just been able to do it on her own, you know.
I would venture that I think that ABA was helpful to her, although I think that it was done in a way in her time that left her as traumatized as the skills that she got. And I want to be clear that quality ABA doesn't do that anymore.
Right.
When my son is, talks about therapy and stuff, his memory, and he doesn't have a whole lot of memories of it, to be honest. His memory of it was that there were these cool people who came and played with him.
Wonderful.
There were times when he got frustrated, and he definitely was like, I'm done with this at a certain point because I want to go play with my friends, which my friends is where we all need to get to.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
What a quality problem that was.
I have a client right now where we just reduced hours. We cut the hours almost in half because all of a sudden now he's got opportunities after school. He goes to school full time, so we can only do ABA during after school or weekend. Mm-hmm. But now he's got friends he's making, and he's got opportunities to go hang out with friends after school. And so, but therapy's getting in the way, so we just went ahead and cut his hours. We're like, great, perfect. So basically the skills we're giving, now he can actually use them in his social interactions.
And that's just another measure of what you've been doing with him is working.
Right.
And that's the beauty of good quality ABA. Mm-hmm. I know they always talk about how an aide in school has the responsibility to work themselves out of a job.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to do. I don't know that it always works that way in a school setting, but good quality ABA works themselves out of a job.
Right.
Which is an amazing thing. It feels, I'm sure that the parent was probably like, I don't think we're ready to have our hours cut.
I was going to say, I wonder how parents like that, though, because I can just
we freak
imagine.
all the way out and go, it's, as much as at some point in your ABA, if you're getting 40 hours of ABA a week, you go, I can't wait till this is over, right? When you're in that mode, I cannot wait until I don't have people in my home or have to take my child to a center for 40 hours a week. But then when it comes time, everybody freaks out.
And then they're like, we're reducing, we're fading out. You're like,
you freak out and go, it's not time, it's not time.
Me.
And that's normal too. At some point we need to do a whole show on that.
Right.
Because I was really lucky that when that happened to me and I flipped completely out and went, we're not ready, I can't, I was able to go to Bryce Myler, who Bryce has been on the show before, and she's amazing. She's one of the moms featured in Recovered, the movie. And I was able to go to her and go, Bryce, I'm not ready. And she was like, yep, that's how everybody feels. You are ready. It'll be okay. Go with the flow. This is what you wanted all along. It's going to be all right. Have all of your feelings. This is normal. You're right on schedule. It'll be okay. And I got through it. But, for people who don't have somebody that's already been through it, we need to do a whole show on that.
Yeah, that would be rough.
But Bryce tends to be very busy. Bryce is the person that when I say to you guys, if you want to know if you have insurance or not, whether you're covered, it's her department that answers those kinds of questions.
Yep.
And the more I tell you to call her, the busier she is and that she can't come on the show. In any case, so recovery, in your experience, have you seen what you believe to be recovery?
Yes. I have.
And, I think it's useful. You mentioned before that doesn't mean that the person is completely without issues, that we all have issues.
Right.
I know when I meet someone who is recovered, and it's very interesting, I think there are a whole lot of people who are recovered that don't use that term, but in my estimation, when I meet people who are recovered, I find myself looking for the
what's
cracks.
wrong with him?
Yes,
Yeah.
what can you do? What can't you do? I'm kind of obnoxious and in their face looking at them. And it's always very interesting to me because at some point then I remind myself, I don't look at other people that way. Like I don't look at you and go, okay, she's
You want
the
to know,
queen
like,
of
is this
yes.
real?
Well, I
Or is
do
this a
as a
scam?
parent. As a parent, I want to know, but where are the problems? And I don't look at other people that way. And eventually I have to remind myself that I'm being rude, that I'm looking at this person through a magnifying glass going, so what can't you do?
Yeah, so like, is this real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is real. I mean, one of the reasons why I want to talk about, fighting for what you believe in is that I believe in the concept of recovery, and I'm willing to fight now. Part of the reason why all this conversation started is because somebody said to me, I wish you would stop using this term.
Oh, really?
And I said, okay, because they said, you're hurting my feelings when you do this. And I said, okay, I will stop using this term. Tell me what term I can use that won't hurt your feelings. And they said, oh, no, it's the whole concept of it that hurts my feelings. And then I said, now we have a problem because I cannot stop talking about the concept. That's a disservice to all of our kids who are coming behind.
Right.
I'd like to solve it so I don't hurt that person's feelings anymore or anyone's feelings, but I refuse to stop talking about the concept of it. I have to fight for what I believe in, and I believe in this. It's more than that. I've seen it with my very own eyes.
Yep.
And it's worth fighting for. That doesn't mean that we're all going to get there, but if we're all fighting for recovery then we're all fighting for progress. And while we're not all going to get to recovery, we will all get to progress if we all fight for this.
Good point. Well, very well said.
All right. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with more with Dr. Najdowski after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. This month we're going to be creating recycled crayons to help us make some scratch art. While we work on this awesome activity, you'll notice that these icons will pop up. These icons tell you important information about the skills we're using and where to find them on the Skills program. Skills is an ABA-based online tool that helps parents create curriculum for the children that are on the autism spectrum. And if you're already a Skills user, you're going to get the most out of this fun activity. Well, let's get started. Materials you'll be needing are old crayons, muffin tins, white cardstock, painter's tape, paintbrush, black tempera paint, laundry detergent, shallow bowls, and some barbecue skewers. Inevitably, anytime my niece comes over and we draw, we end up with a bunch of broken crayons. No problem. I'm going to take these broken crayons today and we're going to peel off the paper. Once they're peeled, you're going to place them in a muffin tin or some small container, and you're going to have the oven preheat to 150. You're going to put the crayons in there, and they're going to melt for about 15 to 20 minutes. As you wait for your recycled crayon to cool, now it's time to prep your cardstock. You're going to take your painter's tape and you're going to line the four sides with it. Now that my recycled crayon has cooled, I'm going to have my child fill in the cardstock, leaving no corner left unfilled with the crayon. I'm going to take my black tempera paint and put it in a small bowl with a little bit of laundry detergent. I'm going to mix that together. Then you're going to have your child paint over their crayon drawing. You want to make sure it's completely covered in paint. Let it dry and do a few more coats if necessary, if you can still see the crayon underneath. I've been really patient and now the paint is finally dry. I'm going to take my bamboo skewer and draw a picture on here. You're going to use your bamboo skewer to scratch away the black paint to reveal the colorful crayons that we used underneath. This is a time for your child to get as imaginative as they'd like. Here's my completed picture. I hope you had fun creating one on your own with your kids. Well, until next time guys, craft on. Bye. To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parent icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Adel Najdowski. a true expert in the field of autism and someone whose advice I always look forward to getting. Now, somebody wrote in a question for either Dr. Adel or Dr. Tarbox. Hi guys, this question is for Dr. Adel or Dr. Tarbox. How can I help my 4-year-old son be social with other little kids? He has language but not conversational. He's social with us at home and even asks his father and myself to play with him. He communicates in 4 to 5 word sentences, so he still needs to gain more language to be conversational. He always listens and answers questions but never initiates. He'll play next to kids but ignores them most times. He'll look at them but just does not look interested in them. And thank you so much.
Okay, so I would definitely start setting up play dates with peers. The best thing to do if your child goes to a school, a preschool or kindergarten or whatever, is to have someone, or you can go observe and kind of watch. You mentioned that your child will play near other children, so most likely one of those other peers is probably coming over now and then and expressing some interest in your son, right?
Yes.
And so those make the perfect peers. You're kind of looking for someone who's a little bit bossy or pushy almost, and you can then approach the parents and ask if they can come over and play. And then at that point, once they come over, you're going to want to have some really fun things set up in advance for the peers so that they are having a good time and they want to come back again. I would also end the session, the peer play session, with some little gift or something like goodie bag or whatever that you can give to the peers, and ask them if they want to come again, and they'll probably say yes. And then pick an activity that they can do together, whether that be a tea party or, baking something, playing with certain toys or whatever.
We're talking about a 4-year-old boys, and so, that might be before we've gotten into video games. I hope for your sake it's before, because once you cross that, you're forever there. But
maybe ask the parent of the peer in advance, what do they like to play with, so you make sure you have certain things there that they really like.
Yeah.
And then have those things set up, and you're going to basically have your child play next to the peer, and then just start with having the peer direct the peer to give instruction to your son. So just have him, if your son can do basic imitation, ask the peer to say things like, do this while playing. So like, let's say if they're playing trains or cars or something, the peer would say to your son, do this, vroom, 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 and then move the car along.
Yeah.
And then your son would do that. And then you would provide reinforcers if you need to your son if it's required. I don't know. He might be into it because he might be social and enjoy that social interaction.
Yeah.
And then make sure to continue to praise the peer as well for doing that. And for the most part, they like it, especially if they're kind of that bossy, take control type of kid. They love telling other kids what to do, and they like it when they listen.
Yeah. And there's a specific kind of kid that is, I always call it the bossy gut kid.
Right.
And a lot of times it can be a girl who's slightly older, but sometimes it can be a boy too, and you want to identify that kid, and they do love this. They think this is great to order around another kid, and it's perfect for your kid.
Now, if your son doesn't have any play skills, though, and can't really play with the toys, you may want to first set that up. It's not like they have to be perfect at it or anything, but you want to make sure that they're okay with imitating. So maybe try that with you first with the toys. So again, saying do this, and then engaging the toys in whatever interactions they're going to go through. And you start with just one action that they're imitating you with, but what's cool is that when you first tell them do this and then they start to imitate you, and then you add like more actions on top of it, and pretty soon you never say do this, you're just doing things and they're imitating you and playing alongside you. And then you can start to teach them to say things while they're doing it as well. So making sound effects, or even just making little statements like, my car is fast, and stuff like that. And you can do the same thing once you have the peer in there. Tell them to say certain things to your son, and to require your son to say stuff back. And for the most part, it's worked very well in the past when I've done this. And the kids love it, and it becomes a regular thing, and they want to come back because you've set up really fun things for them to do, and you have the little treats at the end and everything else.
Like some sort of little gift. Yeah, it's
and
just
the
like
nice
going to a
thing
birthday party.
is if they do go to school together, then it can transfer into that school setting with them seeing each other and everything, and they become friends, which is pretty cool.
It's a wonderful thing. So I love all of that advice. Write us back and let us know how it goes and how it works out. We thank you so much for being here, Dr. Najdowski.
You're welcome.
And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Okay.
So we're going to
Fabulous.
take a break right now, and then we'll be back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with Talk of Facts. Questions, real life questions and answers for the autism journey. Oh, are you ready for this one? Talk to me about puberty. So what I would recommend is, first and foremost, is the kids that have done the therapeutics, the medical, and the dietary allergen removal interventions tend to have an easier time at puberty. Seizures are really common for children on the spectrum, more than neurotypical populations, and they're especially most common right at or about puberty time. So it's extremely important, even if you have a 10-year-old, that you've already done an EEG, that you consider before they go through puberty to get a second EEG done. Just because you have one clean EEG with no abnormal brain activity or seizure activity, you need to do another one prior to puberty. That's one of the most common calls we get with teens on the spectrum, is they are often experiencing a seizure for what their family thinks is the first time. And the third thing is, you're gonna have a teenager, so you're really gonna have to kick it up a notch on those life skills, social skills, and getting your kid ready to be that teenager they need to be. So if you're doing that baby thing, and I know you are, where you're maybe making their lunches or helping them with laundry, we need to start bouncing some chores over to those kids. And we also need to increase social environments where they can be successful. So think about it. We've got 3 really important things that we need to look at. Puberty is a very serious issue, and we take it very seriously. So make sure you have all of your therapeutics, medical, and dietary interventions in place. Consider to do another 24-hour EEG with your physician prior to puberty. And the third most important thing, get ready to raise the bar. Your job is to really get them ready for life. And I know you can do it.
Hello, fellow activists. Let's talk about step 6, live in gratitude and give back. Have you ever noticed that it's impossible to feel sorry for yourself when you focus on your blessings? I have an exercise for you. Take out 5 pennies. I want each penny to represent something you're thankful for today. Now, I bet not one of those pennies represented something material, but that every one of them represented someone you love or a moment you shared with that someone.
Go through life parched and empty, standing knee deep in a river and dying of thirst.
There's a song by Kathy Mattea called Standing Knee Deep in a River and Dying of Thirst. Sometimes we need to look at the river of blessings flowing underneath us, and then we see we're not so thirsty after all. Once you realize how fortunate you are, you can freely give back to others. And there's nothing that will make you feel more fortunate than giving to those less fortunate than you. So start your day with an attitude of gratitude. And until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We always like to give you an update on news, and we haven't been talking about this at all, but of course it's one of the lead stories across the nation right now, that there is a very real measles outbreak that's happening here in the United States and here in Southern California that seems to have had a hot point starting in Disneyland over the holidays. There are a lot of emotions centering around this. People who believe very strongly in vaccinating the children, other people who believe very strongly in not vaccinating their children. I will tell you honestly that, I don't have any answers for anyone, and I doubt from everything that I've read, I don't think that anybody has any definitive answers. We do know for a fact that there are some children that medically it is not a good idea for them to be vaccinated, that it can be to their detriment. There are a small number of children that we know that for a fact, and that we know that there are a large number of children that can be vaccinated and don't have any negative repercussions from it. The gap is that there are a group of children that we're not 100% sure if there's a percentage of possibility that they could fall into that group. So it brings up fear for a lot of people on both sides of the equation. I do bring this up only because for the many people who are in our autism community who have decided not to vaccinate their children, of course, there's an exemption form which you fill out at your child's school, and there, in very small print, it says, should there be an outbreak of something, you understand that your child will be required to go home if they're not vaccinated and not come back until the outbreak is over. And I've heard from some very interesting sources that that's a very real possibility coming up in the next couple of weeks, that a great many of our children may be asked to go home and stay home for a while. So Nancy and I talked about it yesterday and said that we'd like to put it out to our viewers. How do you feel about this? We have no judgments at all about, I think everybody's emotions, they're entitled to their emotions, right? No matter what the subject is, but certainly when it comes to our children's health, we're entitled to all the emotions that come with it. But if you have thought about, if your child is asked to not come to school, what you will do, how you will handle that, it's a very real possibility in the coming weeks that might be happening. So we will keep you updated about that, but we also would like to know your opinions about it. Write in and tell us. You can do that on the live feature, on our Twitter, on our Facebook, or you can email us. We're going to take a look now and go to an amazing ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders called The A Word. This story follows a little boy, Jack Riley, real little boy. You talk about reality TV, this is it right here. Jack Riley was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, and cameras began following his family, dropping in on them from time to time. We certainly don't get the whole picture, but we get to see an overarching view of what it's like to have this kind of intensive behavioral intervention, because he is having quality ABA on a weekly basis in his home. And there are over 3 years of episodes where you can take a look at what this ends up looking like in his life. And you get to see his family grow and see some of the different ways that they have to deal with the emotions of what's happening, both good and bad. So take a look. This is The A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Okay, Jack Riley, can you tell me? And when you're calm and nice, that makes everybody happy. And what are the pictures in this one?
Not calm, mean.
Mean. And when you're not calm and you're mean, that makes everybody sad. And when you're calm and nice to Lainey, you get to have special stickers put on your day. And when you get enough stickers, you get to have what?
Cereal bar.
So with a lot of our kids, sometimes they have trouble dealing with certain situations or changes. Diana wanted us to do is write a social story about being nice to Lainey, things you can do with Lainey Grace besides Fisher. The results of it is he's happy, Lainey Grace is happy, Mom and Dad are happy, therefore making him happy. And he gets the happy points on the chart. And we're supposed to write it in words that they understand. So it's pretty much we're going to be writing it together.
I made a sticker to play.
What should our story be called, Jack Riley? Should it be called Being Nice to Lainey Grace?
Yeah, that's a little pit.
Or should it be called Lainey Grace, My Little Sister? What should it be called?
Lainey Grace and My Little Sister.
Okay, that's a good one. All right. What about your little sister? Do you love Lainey?
Yeah.
Okay. When she cries, how does that make you feel?
Sad.
Makes you feel sad. What are things you can do to make Lainey happy again?
Kiss her.
Kiss her? Okay. That's a good one. So when Lainey cries, it makes me sad. I can give her. Let's read it together, okay?
Lainey Grace is my little sister. I love her very much. Lane Grace.
Does that sound like a good story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Okay.
You walked by Lainey doing a nice job. High five. Let's go put on a happy point. Woo! Let's
Way
go
to
do
go.
it.
That was a happy point, buddy.
Go get a happy point. Yeah.
Woo!
Happy point. Happy point. Oh, this way.
So what the heck is a happy point?
A happy point is we've decided that Jack's aggressiveness with his sister is not being curbed by punishment. So we decided to really try to catch him being good, and that is where the happy point derives from. Good point here. Good example.
Good being nice.
Way That's a happy point. I don't even need to explain much more, do I? Well, so we're trying to teach him the good behavior, and you can't ignore the bad behavior. Like when he's aggressive with me, I try to ignore it so he doesn't get attention from it. But with her, obviously, she can be injured. So we're trying to curb that by making him feel really good when he's not aggressive towards her. And I think we're having a little success, and I think we need patience because it's going to be gradual. But you just saw a good example of what we're hoping will happen more, and then eventually less.
So he earned his cereal bar.
He earned a cereal bar! Good God! Can I leave now? I gotta get my son a cereal bar. Okay.
It's a beautiful family. That is the A word, and you can watch this entire series on its very own YouTube channel to learn from it. Now, our jargon of the day was ABA, and we talked about good quality ABA and the fact that if we pare it all down to its most finite element, that it's a teaching method that helps to increase behaviors that we want to see more of, so skill acquisition, things that we want to get better at, and increasing how often that behavior happens, and decreasing behaviors that we want to see less of, right? This is the perfect example right here, that here we have a little boy, and he's progressing and he's doing all kinds of things, but he needs to learn to be nice to his sister, right? We want to increase him having positive interactions with his sister, and we want to decrease interactions that are negative. And so they look at this behavior, this series of behaviors. What do we want to decrease? What do we want to increase? And they look at it from both points of view. They're teaching him ways that he can have positive interactions with his sister, because we can't assume that he knows how to do that, right? So we teach him how to have positive interactions, and we, reward him for that to ensure that those kinds of things are going to happen more often. And then we try to decrease the negative interactions that he has with his sister by looking at what the paycheck for it is and making sure that he doesn't get a paycheck for it, and also rewarding the absence of those behaviors. Now, there's so many different things that you can do to increase a behavior and to decrease a behavior, right? So one of the things I always talk about is that ABA, it's like having a toolbox. It's it's like a painting class where you get all the paintbrushes and all the different paint, and there's a canvas. There's no one size fits all. Even if I said to everybody, all right, we're all going to paint sunflowers here, obviously we're going to paint different angles of a sunflower, and we're going to use different color palette, and all the brush strokes are going to look different, and each one of these sunflower paintings is going to look vastly different. It's the same thing with ABA. So when you're watching the A word, I want you to keep that in mind, that, Jack Riley is not all children, and he doesn't have the same issues as all children. He doesn't have the same strengths, and he doesn't have the same weaknesses, but the through line here is that we're using the principles of ABA. So when we come across, it's so empowering when you come across an issue to not be like, well, now what are we going to do? Because, we were clipping along just fine, but now now he's got a sister and he isn't nice to her. Well, boys will be boys. We throw up our hands and, you know, in chagrin and say there's nothing that can be done. Oh, woe is me, right? No. We have a toolbox. So we go, what do we have in the toolbox? And you can start by just thinking, okay, what behaviors do I want to increase? What behaviors do I want to decrease? And the other component to it is when we look at both of those things, think about, well, right now they're getting a paycheck somehow for engaging in the behavior that we don't want them to engage in. And we need to flip that equation so they don't get a paycheck for that behavior and they get a paycheck for the behaviors that we want to see more of. And in a nutshell, that is my layman's explanation of ABA and why it's so effective, because it works with all of us. By the way, it doesn't work solely with kids on the autism spectrum, but it also works with kids on the autism spectrum. We can be using this on ourselves. We can use this on our kids. We can use this on our bosses. You know, it works because we all want to feel good. We want the things that we want, and if we increase the paycheck on the things that we want to see more behavior, it's going to happen more likely if the reward is big enough and meaningful enough to us personally. And if we no longer get a paycheck for doing the things that we don't want to do, the behavior, not that we don't want to do, the behaviors that aren't positive towards the things we want to do, then we won't get them. Because obviously, you know, somebody smokes, they want to smoke even though it's not good for them, right? They get some sort of a paycheck from smoking. We want to change that paycheck to something that's positive. Principles of ABA. Okay, really quickly, I also wanted to mention, because we talked a little bit about in the news and the measles news, Time.com came out with a new article last night talking about a new study that was just published yesterday in the Lancet Psychiatry, which a new study talking about, is it possible that if you catch autism, this is a concept we talked about many times on the show, if you catch autism early enough and do enough of the right things, is it possible that you could completely avoid ever needing to get a diagnosis? Is that a reality? And this new study suggests that perhaps it is. They were able to look at children who were 7 months to 10 years old. And this was in Manchester, England, the University of Manchester. And what they did was they identified families and that had the potential of having a risk of having a second child on the autism spectrum. And they separated them into two groups, gave parent training and feedback about how they were interacting with their children, and tweaked it so that they were doing, I would assume, things that were more ABA-like in order to increase the behaviors that we want to see more of and decrease the behaviors that we wanted to see less of. And they found that it was very effective, and a larger percentage of the kids that they would have expected to have developed autism did not. And they go on to say in the Time article that the findings aren't the first to show that intervening at such an early age with high-risk babies can potentially lower their chances of developing autism. That there was, and we've talked about it before on this show, in 2014, University of California, Davis, the intensive parenting model that showed, I was talking about this yesterday with Nancy Alspaugh Jackson, that showed how important it is that if parents get the right training, that we can be effective at helping our kids. So in any case, really important, if you already have children who are on the autism spectrum and you're having more children, more evidence that you can begin to do things as early as 7 months that could make a difference in your child's life. You get this toolbox, learn it well. And by the way, if you're thinking, how can I learn more things to do in the toolbox? One of my favorite places to go is ibehavioraltraining.com. It's the Institute for Behavioral Training. They have videos to teach you absolutely anything that you could want to know from the perspective of a clinician, or from the perspective of a teacher, or from the perspective of a parent. So ibehavioraltraining.com. It's also wildly affordable. The training started at like $7.50 a training. And by the way, when you pay that $7.50, you pay for it for a period of time. So, let's say that you want to know about how do you gain compliance with your child, and you pay the $7, it could be as high as I think $13. So let's say that you paid $13 for that for 3 months, and you learn from it, and then you have your significant other learn from it, and then you show it to the babysitter, and you show it to your child's teacher, so that everybody has an opportunity to be, and you show it to all your therapists. It's a great thing. A great thing. Less than going to a movie. You can learn to do these things. Absolutely amazing. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, the fabulous Dr. Jonathan Tarbox will be here with us, so stick with us.
Hi, I'm Ryan with Autism Research Group. We study ways to improve the lives of kids with autism. One of those ways is teaching safety skills, such as what to do if they get lost. We hit the streets to find out if anybody knows the correct answer on how to teach a kid what to do if they get lost.
You're teaching a child
what to do if they get lost.
Yeah, you're trying to make them independent so they have the skills.
Gotcha, okay.
Well, give them a compass. Code name's good idea, Centurion.
We always have this whistle.
Oh, I'd also tell the kid, don't get scared. You're gonna be all right, man. This is just the world. This is planet Earth. You're at home here. As long as you're on planet Earth, you're at home.
As long as you're on planet Earth, you're home. This guy's a genius. With that flawless logic, he just solved our homeless problem. And as for the unique sounding whistle, although very cool, it'll probably only work if you're in close proximity. And a compass?
I have her call me.
Yeah, she don't have a phone. Parents are like, you're too young, you don't need a phone.
Establish some sort of meeting place.
What if they can't find a meeting place? Because sometimes the kids get nervous when they get lost.
Yeah.
So like a backup plan, plan B.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not really.
Let them go and find a new kid.
Yeah, I've got a different one. Yeah.
There's not much you can do.
There is stuff you can do.
That's right, there is stuff you can do. In 2012, myself, along with my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and Dr. Adel Najdowski, published a study in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis on teaching kids what to do when they get lost. The study demonstrated how 3 simple things, rules, role-playing, and praise, were effective in establishing these help-seeking behaviors. The benefit of this method is it doesn't require the child to have a cell phone or to have to locate a meeting place, which might be difficult if they're in a place like Disneyland. So once again, our method included rules, role-playing, and praise. Let's head back outside and learn about some of these rules.
They should yell out loud. Can't find my mom, help me.
Maybe yell out and scream for help. All right, scream really loud.
Correct.
And if that doesn't work, then
I don't know.
Well, they could seek help from someone.
Find an adult.
Yeah, go to a vendor, and say I'm lost.
Find an adult, like a police officer or a fireman or an employee in the store, and tell them, and maybe they can help you contact your parent.
It really is that simple. You don't need to get your kid a cell phone. You don't need to establish a meeting place that they might not be able to find when they're lost and panicking. And you definitely don't need to give them a compass. All your kid has to do is 3 things. First, yell mom or dad real loud. 2, if that doesn't work, find an employee. And then 3rd, tell the employee they're lost. If they can't locate an employee, then tell them to find a mother with children, because that's probably the safest person to approach. I'm not saying that most men are predators, but most predators are men. That is a fact. I've read it in a fortune cookie. All right, so you've gone over the rules with your kid, and you've quizzed them, and they're able to tell you the correct responses so they understand the rules. But is that enough? How do you know they're going to perform correctly in a real-world setting? You need to get out there and find out if they can actually do it.
So you'd go over the rules and tell them, do this, do that, but how would you know if they actually knew what to do? If you wanted to shoot a basketball, and I just told you, oh, when you shoot a basketball, do this, this, and this.
But never practice.
You never practice. Yeah, so it doesn't matter how many times we go over the rules or how well you can repeat them back to me. It's not going to change until you get on the court and practice.
Maybe do a little skit with them.
Like a role play?
Role play, yeah.
Your child, you're lost in the toy aisle.
Okay.
What do you do? I'm an attendant, walking around.
I'm lost, I don't know where my mom is. And then once you practice, you just praise them, give them feedback, good job, you did it.
Reinforcing it.
Yes, this woman wins the prize for best comment. She pointed out the most important part of learning. reinforcement. Now, in our study, we used praise, but for your kid, you might have to use something else. You might have to buy them a treat, a toy, take them to their favorite restaurant where they can eat unhealthy food, and run around and climb through plastic tunnels that have the unmistakable scent of urine, and then play games spending $20 to get a plastic little spider ring that they will eventually lose in a ball pit. The point is, you need to reward your child for correctly demonstrating what you've been teaching them.
Okay, I'm gonna call her. Hello, your child, Ryan Autism is missing. There you go.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So you tested it out
I'll
in the
try.
store to make sure I knew it. I had the rules.
Yes.
We role played it, and you made sure I knew it. And then like you said, good job, and all that. Now we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right.
Done?
High five right there.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Give your child the rules, get out there and practice, and reward your child for responding correctly. For more information, please visit us online at autismresearchgroup.org. I'm Ryan Bergstrom. Thanks for watching. Yes, ding, no. Yes, this woman wins the first. Yes, this woman. Yes, this woman wins the best. Yes, this woman wins the first place. Yes, this woman. Why can't I say woman? Yes, this woman wins. What's the line? Yes!
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. You know this is how I like to end the week, to have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, because we get a lot done when you're here. I think we answer more questions per hour than any other hour and help a lot of people on their way. So if you're just joining us, new to the program, because every week we're gaining viewership, we have a lot of new people. Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is the head of research and development at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. He is the director of the Autism Research Group, and he treats individuals on the autism spectrum. A remarkable list of accomplishments, and there are so many more things. You're one of the co-authors of the card book. I never even mentioned that. There's like 35 things that I don't mention that you do that are all impressive.
Not a problem.
But in any case, one of the greatest compliments that I can give him is that he is able to talk to parents and get on a parent level and use words that we understand. That's amazing, and he helps so many of us because he can do that. So I'm going to get right to some questions here. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Tarbox. I have a non-verbal 4-year-old with a strong visual impairment.
Okay.
When we say his name or look at me, he is about 20% with eye contact, usually for about 1 second. He stares at the lights in the room, so sometimes during therapy, and they put in parentheses, escape with an exclamation point.
Okay.
We shut them off to improve attending because he'll stare at the lights. My question is, should we keep pushing the eye contact / attending? What should our focus be? I know he's smart, but he can be slow to learn a new target, so I want the most important ones first. Are they attention, imitation, and manding? I'm confused. We have ABA, but the therapist asked me what I want to work on. Thank you so much. I'm a faithful viewer. Great questions.
Yeah, it's great questions, and thank you for your faithful viewership. We appreciate that.
We do appreciate that.
So lots of interesting points in there, actually.
Yeah.
And first of all, I should start off by saying, like, when I'm not an expert on something, I like to say I'm not an expert on that in particular. I think it's a really important thing for clinicians and researchers to do. And I would say I'm definitely not an expert on visual impairment as it relates to autism spectrum disorders. Nevertheless, we can chat on some of these details. And also, I'd like to point out, it's pretty cool, actually, that the ABA provider is asking for your input and asking what you want to work on. Hopefully that's not their only source of knowledge or source of information for what to work on next. But if they want your input and they want your opinion, that actually says a lot, that they're actually interested in what matters to you. So that's really important.
Because if you really stop and think about it, there are many different, for me as a parent versus, say, Nancy Allspot Jackson, who's with us on Wednesdays, there are some things that are more important to me than are important to her. That doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
But it's just more important to me.
Yeah, and it's
I
your
like
family.
being asked.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And furthermore, no matter how good the BCBA is, they don't know your kid as well as you do, and they don't see everything you see. So there's definitely going to be lots of things that you see in your child's daily behavior, in their interaction with others, their preferences, their likes, their dislikes that the BCBA will never know, no matter how long they work with your kid. So it's critical for the BCBA to get your input.
Yeah, love that.
So yeah, as far as sort of what's the most important skills to target and priorities, definitely manding. They mentioned manding, which is requesting, right? That's when a child wants something and is able to request it and does not depend on others to ask them, do you want X or do you want Y? That is by far the most critical early skill. So absolutely, if your child still has deficits in manding, then definitely focus on manding. That's really, really important. Now the attending piece is interesting. And now if by attending we mean paying attention to instruction, then yes, attending is absolutely critical. However, with someone with a strong visual impairment, it might be actually really difficult to know whether or not they're attending. Usually in ABA, we measure attending by measuring eye contact. So if you're the child and I'm working with you, I might look at you and I might say your name or get your attention in some way, and once you make eye contact with me, that's when I believe, okay, Shannon's attending, now I deliver an instruction, or now we start trying to teach and learn. Well, if you're severely visually impaired, there might be no reason for you to look at me, and that might not even be important to attending. Maybe you're attending by merely listening, but maybe you're looking at the table, maybe you're looking at the ceiling. Again, that's where my expertise, I would say, isn't strong enough to know, are there other really good indicators of attending in folks who are visually impaired? I'm not really sure. But one way to know for sure whether or not someone is attending is give them an opportunity to respond in some way where they can't possibly get it right unless they were paying attention.
Okay.
And make sure it's something that they're capable of doing. Okay. And if they get that right, by definition, they were attending, right? And I don't mean some memorized response or something like that. I mean like paying attention to whatever it is that's happening, and they can only get it right if they were paying attention.
Okay. So clearly that's not a teaching moment then, because I think a lot of times we get confused about, I'm trying to teach this. That's not the teaching moment. You're just seeing if they were paying attention with a skill that you know that they already know how to do, or an answer that they would already know if they were paying attention.
If they were paying attention, yeah.
Okay.
So in this case, it might have to be something vocal, not visual, right? If the kid's
But this
severely
child's
visually impaired.
non-vocal.
Right. Well, okay. So that makes it more challenging too. So it could be something receptive. So for example, it could be you know, an instruction where you say a word and then the kid gives some action in some way that's been learned in the past, and you know that they could only do the action that you want if they were actually listening to the words that you said. So for example, touch your nose or stand up, or you know, touch your tummy, whatever. Something like that's learned and mastered in the past, that they can only possibly get that right if they were actually listening to the word tummy when it came out of your mouth.
Okay.
So that would be some way to at least kind of assess that.
Okay. Now, having said all of that, I just want to, and I clearly am not an expert on visual impairment either. It's like practically written across my face that I'm not an expert in that. But I will say this, that my child had a visual impairment as well. So I have some experience as a parent of going through, finding that out, and trying to figure out what to do about it. So my question to you is, have you been able to find an expert? Have you done the testing to know where the visual impairment is? And are you doing something about that? Or, you know, has anybody talked to you about the fact that there are things that you can do about that?
Right.
Because there are.
And I'll say that there are ABA folks, BCBAs, who are experts in that. I mean, there are BCBAs who specialize specifically in individuals with multiple severe disabilities, including visual impairments. So I would ask for that specifically. I mean, you might not have to switch BCBAs, but it's reasonable to ask your BCBA, hey, do you have any prior experience in visual impairments? And if not, can you please seek consultation from someone who does? So it could be someone else at their organization, or it could be requesting a consult from a BCBA outside of their organization who's an expert.
And there is a whole section in skills that's on visual motor that has some interesting things to do in there that may or may not apply to your child. And I will tell you that where I was referred to as a card client was to go to a developmental, it's either an ophthalmologist or an optometrist, but I think it's an ophthalmologist. And we went to an incredible gentleman who did a battery of tests for us and sent us home with a series of, we had the choice of going to his office twice a week to do a series of exercises, or he could send some of it home with us that we could do with our therapist, which is what we chose to do, and it greatly, greatly, greatly helped my child. So just know that there are things that you can do to move the dial on that, and that's a worthwhile thing to do. And then write back and let us know how it goes.
Yes,
now,
please do.
one last question that I want to ask about. Now, she's thinking that this whole question of turning the lights off because he tends to look at lights, and that may be an escape thing and is shutting off the lights. Is there anything else that she could be doing, or is that pretty much it if he's looking at light?
Well, I don't know. I'm just getting creative here. And again, I'm kind of just making stuff up here. But what if the therapist wore a bright source of light, like just a single LED on their forehead or something like that, and the lights in the rest of the room were dimmer? That would actually get the child to maybe attend more. But maybe they're not attending to the right thing. Maybe they're just, staring at the light and not actually listening to what the therapist says. I don't know.
Interesting.
Or maybe the therapist, put a spotlight on the therapist, have a light shining directly on the therapist's face, and have the rest of the room more dim or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm just making stuff up here.
Well, I think that's really creative and very clever, because one of the things that we did do with Jem, we found that he wasn't able, with his particular visual impairment, he wasn't able to focus within a certain field of range. And there was a machine that we had to purchase, you could rent or purchase, that has little LED lights that light up, and they have to do this exercise where they look at the lights. And I thought, well, if you can't look at them, how is this going to help? It did help, though. It did, and he was able to better focus, and it helped with such a wide variety of skills. It helped with his reading, it helped with all kinds of things. So interesting. I know at least one friend who has a set of eyeglasses that are battery operated, that they can turn them on or off, that they have little LED lights that light up around the glasses. So that could be, and it was for a costume. But I'm thinking, how interesting if the child is interested in looking at lighting and trying to get eye contact, maybe that's a...
I mean, and the stuff with things like that is I can't talk. The thing with ideas like that is, don't be rigid about it. If you want to try something like that, be flexible. Don't think it's going to be a magic pill, because it's not going to be. But maybe try it once during a therapy session and really carefully see, did my child respond at all? People out there who sell you all kinds of magic cures and say, oh, this will fix that, or this will fix that, or these special glasses, or special this or that. But be skeptical and just try one thing at a time, and be flexible and creative and see what happens.
Yes, you run it up the flagpole to see who salutes. That's what we always say in my family. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more questions that you guys have sent in for Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable. Abstract.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He is answering your questions. And I want to get right to one that came in on the live feature. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Tarbox. I heard you mention a school readiness checklist. Is this good to see if my almost 5-year-old is ready for kindergarten? Where can I find this checklist? We have just lost our ABA BCBA for the second time. So I'm the only stable person in his life, and I feel a lot of pressure right now to make the right decision. I want to make the most informed decision I can. Thank you for your time. You have such a positive impact in my life and blessings. So Dr. Tarbox, let's start with readiness checklist, which I think somebody else on the show had brought up.
Sure.
We talked about this a little bit during the break.
So we can track that down. We can
yes.
email the person, as long as you have this person's email address.
I don't. So we need for you to send an email so that I can find the checklist, track down. I think, you gave me a good idea of where to go to get that.
We know who to ask. Yeah.
So that we can email that to you. But, and I don't know if you're the same parent. We had somebody who wrote in earlier on in the week saying, what are the pros and cons of sending a child to school when they're 5 or kindergarten, or keeping them in preschool and waiting a year. And I kind of weighed in from a teacher's point of view, but I'm more concerned and want to know what you think about the fact that they just lost their ABA, BCBA for the second time.
Very concerning. So I guess I would ask if you're still watching, maybe you could type in real quick and give us a little more information about what happened. Was it a funding issue, or did they move away, or was it just not a good fit, or what the case was, so I could give more specific feedback, or more specific advice. But I would definitely say, if you're faced with difficult decision points, it's great to have a BCBA, a good quality, experienced BCBA, helping to consult with, to kind of help make these decisions or help give you more information for the decisions. A lot of times folks either think that either my kid's going to have a full ABA program, intensive for years, or nothing. But that's not true. BCBAs do a lot of other things other than just a full-on intensive ABA program. Sometimes it might be a few hours of consulting with the BCBA to go over the IEP, or go observe the potential school placement, or attend the IEP meeting. Some shorter term, more sort of focused areas of help that a good quality BCBA can really be helpful in providing some support during these tough decisions. Yeah,
I feel like everybody thinks, when they think ABA, they think, oh, it's this cookie cutter kind of thing, and it should never be.
Right, never.
We talk all the time about what is a hallmark of good quality ABA. It should never be a cookie cutter thing of, this is what the program is, it's this way for everyone, we're inflexible about it, it's this many, hours of this and that, and we do it in this order. It shouldn't be that. I think, when people talk about we know, and we talk all the time about the science that shows that for young kids that there is a clear-cut amount of hours that we want to hit.
Right.
But within those hours, different things happen.
Absolutely.
And outside of that window, it gets a lot more flexible even than that.
Right.
But her child is almost 5, so she's still in that window.
Right.
And the one thing I want to say is that how important it is for you to still be getting ABA in that window.
Right.
But really, I would be saying that if she said the child was 7.
Yeah, I mean, as long as your child continues to have significant skill deficits or significant behavioral challenges that your family and the school are not able to successfully manage on their own, then that's when help from an ABA provider is absolutely warranted.
Okay, so she is in the space of making the decision. We're going to find her the checklist, but do you have any opinions about when you have a client that is of any age, what kinds of things are you looking at to say, I think that it's a good mix for this child to be in kindergarten?
Right, so it's really tough to generalize because every kid is so different.
Right.
And frankly, every classroom and every teacher is so different. But the things that I'm looking for are sort of readiness skills. So things like, can the child sit for at least a few minutes at a time? And can the child pay attention, whether it's paying attention to the teacher during circle time or during classwork, whatever it is. Can the child observe peers and imitate? So are they able to learn from peers and imitate what peers do? If they can't do that, or if they're not very good at that yet, there's not a whole lot of reason to have them hang out with peers, because that's the main thing that we all learn as humans, whether you're on or off the spectrum. When you're hanging out with your peers, that's what you do. You look, you see what they're doing, and then you think about, do I want to do that, or should I? Okay, maybe I'll try that too. And then you try it, and then it gets reinforced, because then the peers say, oh yeah, sure, great, come play with us, right? But if you're not able to engage in peer imitation, or observational learning, it's also called. It's just that's the main foundational thing.
Yeah.
And then there's a few other ones too. Presence of a lot of severe challenging behavior is going to make it really tough to be successful in a typical kindergarten class. But then also things like I would say sort of the openness and the flexibility of the teacher and maybe the leadership if you're meeting with the principal in terms of being flexible for accommodations and customizing what's going to happen in that classroom. If the school is really rigid and they say, this is our classroom, this is our program, take it or leave it, to me, that's a big red flag. That's saying, well, okay, then what if my kid isn't perfectly successful? Then what? What are we going to do? So.
Yeah. One of the things that I am noticing about where I am and when people write in is that frequently, as parents of kids on the autism spectrum, we are faced with decisions. Right. We have to make these big, huge, sweeping decisions that seemingly affect everything. That right now, I'm trying to pick where my child's going to go to junior high, and it feels like everything in the world hinges on this decision, and if I mess it up, it's on me, and I really blew the whole thing. Right. And it's like a backpack that I'm carrying right now. And, and I remember when we were figuring out which kindergarten and when he was going to go to kindergarten, same backpack, different size and color, right? Right. And I know you guys write on a regular basis and say, but what if it's this and what if it's that? And it's so much easier to see it when it's somebody else's backpack than when it's my own. But I'm reminding myself that here's the thing, that ultimately you are going to make a decision. A day is going to come when you make a decision, even if it's that you decide not to decide and things happen anyway, but a decision of some sort will happen and things will change. And next year he's either going to be in kindergarten or he's not going to be in kindergarten. But here's the thing that I want to remind myself. I reminded Nancy Allspaw-Jackson of this yesterday, and I want to remind you. You will always have the ability to change if you get in there and you go, I think I blew it, I'd like to do something else, you can.
That's right.
And I can, and Nancy can, and so can everybody else. So being willing to say, make your list of here's why I think I should, here's why I think I shouldn't. I've talked to experts, they've weighed in on it. I've had somebody who knows my child look at this. I know my child, I've looked at it. My gut at the end of all of that says this, that's what I'm going to go with. But if you get 2 weeks down the road and you change your mind, you really can. Mm-hmm. There are some times when we can't change our mind, like, the thing is gone. The placement is gone. The thing is there. Yeah. Occasionally that happens. But I got to tell you, I don't know about in your life, but every time that's happened to me, maybe 3 weeks later, maybe 3 years later, I find out why that was a good thing.
Right.
That ultimately...
It does always work out.
That I say, thank heavens that I wasn't able to do that because this worked out, this, and that was for the best.
Right. And really, honestly, if you're spending that much time and that much effort and that much emotional investment thinking about this, planning this, and caring that much, you know what? That's what your kid needs. He needs a mom that does that.
Right.
And as long as he has that, you're going to make it work.
Yeah.
It's going to work out. It's going to be, and it's not going to be easy,
No.
I mean, we're always thinking, like, what choice can I make that'll fix everything? Well, there isn't one that'll fix everything. All the choices that we make hopefully get us closer to what we value, and that's it. And we're going to keep being challenged with those types of choices.
And I got to say that I thought when I got the kindergarten thing figured out that then it would be like, okay, right? And now I'm like, oh, we're having the backpack for junior high. I'm having all these feelings. And it's just around the corner that it's going to be high school, and then it's going to be, what comes after that? Like, does he go away to college on his own? Oh my goodness.
And I want to tell all of your viewers the difference that I've seen in all the families that I've worked with. What really is the difference between kids who really do well and kids who are really a lot more challenged is they have parents who engage the process rather than avoiding the process, because frankly it's more reinforcing in the moment to step away and to not engage, right? Because it's painful and it's scary.
Hand me some butter pecan ice cream. Right? I would like to get completely numb and not have to deal with this, right?
Exactly. But honestly, the kids that have the best outcomes have the parents who step towards the difficulty and towards the pain and just engage the process and don't give up.
I'm going to get a poster, engage the process. We'll put a picture of you on it. Like Uncle Sam wants you. Engage the process with Dr. Tarbox. Engage the process. So what a wonderful thing to live by. But knowing that, you always will have it in you. If you see it's not working, you'll go, no, this isn't working, and you'll change something else. And we'll all be there with you, holding hands with you while you do that. But really, I agree with you. Your child has the most wonderful thing that they could ever have, you. and you're getting it done. So hang on to that. All right, we're going to take a break because now I'm getting all misty. All right, we'll be back after these messages. There's been another new study about optimal outcomes, and I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on recovery? Do you think it's possible? Do you believe in recovery from autism?
On recovery, you learn how to adapt. I mean, I've had a lot of experimental brain scans done, and they have found things that are definitely abnormal. I have an enlarged left ventricle that's definitely abnormal. That's not going to go away. That scan was done less than 5 years ago. But you work with someone and they adapt. You're not going to make me an algebra specialist. That's just not going to happen. But things like getting better at public speaking, that is something that I gradually learned. What I'm seeing today, especially with some of the kids on the mild end of the spectrum, I'm seeing teenagers that are much milder than me that haven't learned things like how to go up to the counter at McDonald's and order food all by themselves, how to go on the bus, how to shop, how to go in the store and shop, how to do a checkbook, basic things like that. Because what drives me crazy is when I go back to the cattle world and I see a guy in the maintenance shop that's running the whole maintenance shop at a big plant, and he's as Asperger's as he can be, and he's running a whole maintenance shop. And then I see Junior that's addicted to video games, and you can't get his duff off his chair and get him doing things. Now, when I was in high school, I did a lot of thinking about this. I got kicked out of a large girls' school for throwing a book, and I went to a special boarding school up on a farm, and I was allowed to work with the farm animals. And they let me goof off and not study. But I got to thinking, there's one thing they did not let me do. I goofed off and I didn't study, but I had to physically go to class. When I didn't want to go to the Friday night movie, they made me the projectionist. One thing they were not going to let me do is sit in my room, become a recluse in my room. They were not going to allow that.
I want to know why you threw the book. Why did you throw it?
Oh, I threw a book at a girl because she called me a retard.
Oh, good reason.
Oh, no,
to throw
she
it
teased me. And I had some problems getting in fights when kids teased me. But it was always brought about by someone picking on me. And the principal had me kicked out of school, out of a large girls' school for doing that.
And what'd your mom say?
Well, she was not very happy about the whole thing, because when the principal called, I answered the phone and he said I was incorrigible and I was kicked out of school. Mother was really angry that he just said that right directly to me, which was definitely not very appropriate.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He's answering viewers' questions. We were talking with a parent about readiness for kindergarten and asked for some more information, and we did receive more information, so I'm going to read that. Because specifically, Dr. Tarbox, you asked for more information about why had they gone through 2 BCBAs in their ABA program. So they wrote and said, well, I had 27 hours, but they were not able to give me the hours. I spoke to the BCBA to see if we could have monthly meetings, and she said she did not have the time. I had been feeling for some time that she was overwhelmed and not able to give us enough oversight for some time. So I told her we needed to have a heart-to-heart, and she was honest and said that she did not have the time and gave me a 2 weeks notice. We're not going to say the name of the company to protect anonymity for what's going, but she states the name of the company that has now told her that she needs to be on a 5-month waiting list, and she goes on to say, which is not right. The first BCBA went MIA, and this recent one started off good, giving us 110%, but then slowly she was not following through, and we had a discussion recently about communication where it got heated. I'm really frustrated because they state that they're in Florida. The assistants are hard to find. Most don't speak English, and that she says, I'm panicking right now as I type this, but I know we'll be fine, and thanks for your feedback. And then separately she sent an address so that I can get a checklist to you.
Great.
So bless your heart. I just want to hug you because that's a lot to be going through.
It sure is.
And I can relate to that feeling of impending panic or feeling the panic because what you're going through is real, right? So let's talk a little bit about this because unfortunately she's not the only person that's going through this.
Right.
So give us a perspective as somebody who's in the industry about.
Right. So we actually do hear about this quite a bit, about families being served by ABA providers where they're simply too busy. They don't have the time. And so either they're not hiring their entry-level workers fast enough or not training them fast enough, so they can't actually provide the hours. 27 hours is a lot of hours. That's a great, good quality intensive program if you have good quality people to do it. And so, yeah, that's really disturbing to hear. The other thing that I would like to point out that's extremely disturbing is the idea that the parent would ask the BCBA, can we meet at least once a month? And the BCBA would say, no, we don't have time. I mean, I've literally never even heard of that.
Right.
You know, the minimum, I mean, once a month is really the minimum. Ideally, a BCBA should be getting out there and seeing the kid and hopefully seeing the parent more like every 2 weeks, maybe even more often than that. Ideally, maybe even weekly. So the fact that they can't even provide oversight once a month is like not adequate by any standards whatsoever in ABA. And then the other thing that's really concerning is they were, and maybe we're reading this wrong, but it sounds to me like they were servicing the family and then stopped with 2 weeks notice, and now they're going to service them again, but they have to wait 5 months?
They're on a waiting list
Is
for
that,
5 months. That's, yeah.
I've never heard of that either. I mean, that's totally nuts. Like once you start a therapeutic relationship with a family, it's your ethical responsibility to continue that therapeutic relationship until it's an appropriate time to no longer have that relationship. Like the client doesn't need your services anymore or agrees that it's not a good fit or whatever it is, but you don't just say, never mind, we'll see you in 5 months.
Right.
And again, we're not speaking specifically to your circumstance because we don't know enough about it.
Right.
But these are issues that we do hear about sometimes.
Yes, and there, you know, people need to know that there is a severe shortage of BCBAs who are trained to deal with autism across the world, and that while getting insurance funding and getting insurance mandates in states has been really wonderful. We saw most recently that in the state of Nebraska, they signed the law into effect last April. It just took effect in January, and on January 1st, it was issued with a statement from the state level government in Nebraska saying, please be patient and expect us to take at least 2 years to be able to ramp up and have enough people to provide the services. And I, of course, said out here on the show, don't listen to that. Don't be patient. Don't wait 2 years.
Right.
That's really inappropriate in this field. But I understand why the government issued that statement, because they know they don't have the infrastructure.
Right.
They know that, and and if you say in April, and you say, well, they signed it into law in April, they've had all this time, but you can't train a BCBA and get them to be a board certified behavior analyst in 9 months.
No.
I mean, that is the reality
It's physically
of it.
impossible.
And even then, they're a BCBA, but to have training specific to autism, that's a whole other thing. Right. So it literally comes down to warm bodies who are educated and know what they're doing, and having the time to catch up with the BCBAs.
And just to put things in perspective, California probably has more BCBAs than any state, and certainly it's where Lovaas started and where ABA treatment for autism was pioneered in many respects, and still we are very far behind the demand. We're nowhere near able to meet the demand. So a place like Nebraska, I would assume, is probably going to be even tougher.
Now, and for this viewer who's in Florida, Florida has its own set of problems because there's a whole thing with Medicaid and getting people to be able to get the funding.
But it's ironic because Florida is where certification for behavior analysts was created. So they're also they have one of the longest histories of behavior analysts being there providing treatment for people with autism, and yet they too cannot possibly meet the demand.
And part of what's happening is a lot of providers are putting heavy caseloads onto, if they've got a BCBA, they're putting heavy caseloads, and that's very stressful for those individuals. And some of them are saying, this is not how I wanted my life to be, being so stressed, having too many kids to provide quality care.
Right.
They're leaving certain providers, going to other providers. So there's a lot of shifting happening out there. So then we have a basic understanding of here's what we're dealing with. But at the end of the day, it's your kid, and you've got this amount of time, and you need to, at least you have an understanding, but it doesn't change the equation of what you need to do for your kid.
No, and unfortunately, it's like many situations, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's
and so if you don't advocate for your child, you might be at the end of that 2-year period versus at the beginning, So you don't want your child to be the one that, if you're nice and quiet and friendly, your child ends up being the last one to get helped. unfortunately.
And you know, and I love your comment about the squeaky wheel, but you have to keep your squeaky wheel positive. It's a very fine line, right? And I would imagine that you've already called your provider and had the discussion with them where they've said, you know, it's going to take 5 months. I would encourage you to call back in your nicest, sweetest, or stop by and visit and say, who can I talk to who's empowered to change things, to see if you can change that equation, and very nicely explain to them that you don't have 5 months to wait. I would tell you, hedge your bets, and if they're still saying to you it's 5 months, don't cut anything off. Don't tell them, I am done with you. You are dead to me, you know, all the things that might be going through your head, but go and see if you can get on somebody else's waiting list that's only 3 months,
Right.
or 2 months, or 2 weeks, right?
Right.
But in the meantime, you got to start thinking about, what else do I want to create? You have the ability. You mentioned that assistants are hard to find, and that is a huge thing. That providers have trouble keeping that young population that is trained on staff because they have other things that they want to do. They're just
Right.
they're a group of people who are prone to change on a regular basis. It drove me crazy as a parent that we would get a therapist that I would love, and the next thing I would know, they were off to be an au pair in Australia, and I would go, no. I feel like we've built our entire lives around you. What do you
Right.
mean you want to go be an au pair in Australia? A true story. Right? From the annals of things that have happened to us. It happens, and it will happen every 3 months, and you have to be able to move with the shifting sand. But the great news is that you do have a way of educating your own people if you want to. It's not as hard as it used to be. I mentioned IBT before. You could be training people. You yourself were someone that a parent hired.
Correct.
There was you were a college student, and a parent said, I want people to work with my children with autism, and you answered the ad.
That's right. And she bought all the books that existed at the time, and training VHS cassettes and whatever else, and just made it work.
Right. So when, you know, would that, I assume that mom was stressed beyond all possible
Oh,
belief,
absolutely.
and that she was gray well before her time.
And she had other children. She was a small business owner. She had
Right.
lots of things on her plate. Yeah.
Right. But, you know, other people have done it, and I would say to you that, you know, you got to find the way. And I don't know which way is going to work for you, but hedge your bets. Find the way that you can make it work. Use all the resources that you can. Now, we have a great mom who is in Florida who has gone through all of the different ways that the Medicaid thing works in Florida. And so let me know if you want me to reach out to her to see if she can connect with you, because she's finding the way to make it work. And I think sometimes having a mentor that's, you know, even 10 feet in front of you, so that you go, okay, somebody else can do it under the circumstances that I'm under, helps to, you know, let you know it's possible. Because the equation looks like it won't work, right?
Right,
But there's
absolutely.
always a way. Always, always, always a way. But let me know if that's something that I can hook you up with. All right. And I've got your email. She wrote again about, she says, she was coming 4 hours a week to work directly with my child, but she told me she couldn't meet with me once a month to discuss our case and provide feedback. But
It doesn't make sense.
well, it's not appropriate. It might be the constraints that she was under. That's not going to be a hallmark of good ABA. I don't doubt that probably was the BCBA.
Whoever was supervising the program needs to meet with the parent on a regular basis.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. There's no exceptions to that.
Right. And there are way too many studies now that have shown that parents have to be involved in this process, or you're not going to get to where you want to get to.
Right.
That's just, you know, I think we can accept that as the deal. Anybody who thinks, oh, great, I'm just going to take my child, drop them off at an ABA provider, and I'll pick them up, and they'll be that much better, and I won't have to know anything during the hours that I'm there, is lying to themselves.
Right.
And if your ABA provider is shoveling that at you, say no. Say no and start looking for somebody else. Now, having gone through all of this and realizing that this is what her circumstance is, it kind of changes the equation a little bit on whether or not you want to send your child to kindergarten. Because if you have the ability to have good trained people working with your child through the next year, you know, there's a part of me that feels like that's your gut, and that's the thing you really have to fight for that. Our topic this week is, what are you willing to fight for? Fight for that. If you really can't make it happen, you know, well, I think you got to make that happen.
Right.
You have to be willing to
Priority
fight for
one,
that and
yeah.
make it priority one and rearrange some things. And if that means you have to open your own preschool, let me know. I've got some toys I can ship you. You know what I'm saying? But you're not alone in this. That's the thing that I want you to know more than anything else. We're here for you, and I've got a mom on the ground there in Florida who's making it happen, and is trying to get a new office opened in Florida. I hope that you live somewhere near her. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back to close out the show, so stick with us.
Hi, welcome to Camp Discovery, a free-to-play suite of fun, interactive learning games for kids 2 and up, designed by experts in autism. Camp Discovery will open your early learner to a world of new skills, shapes, numbers, colors, locations, emotions, and more. Let's get started.
Please choose a level.
Objects. First, Camp Discovery's Intelligent Preference Assessment determines your child's preferred reward for choosing correctly. Okay, got it. Let's play. Camp Discovery creates a motivating learning environment for your child by minimizing incorrect responses and maximizing successful ones.
Find the shoes.
Respond correctly and your child is rewarded with their favorite animations.
You did it.
Respond incorrectly and our unique prompting system guides your child to the correct answer by making it the largest choice.
That's not it. Try again. Way to go.
Continue to answer correctly and the size gradually reduces until the child makes the correct choice independently.
You win.
Success! Rewards motivate learning. Complete a round and your child is rewarded with a fun mini-game. Track your child's progress with easy-to-read graphs. Multiple settings options allow you to customize Camp Discovery to your child's unique needs. All this in one single app, the Camp Discovery app, available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Store.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here at the end of the week. We're going to try to squeeze in one more question with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. We had a viewer who wrote in and was concerned because they have been diagnosed with high-functioning autism. And that's very troubling to them.
Okay.
We asked Dr. Grampachet a question on their behalf, and Dr. Grampachet suggested that they not spend as much time worrying about the high-functioning autism as the things that they want to do and finding the way to be able to do it.
Exactly right.
But they said, Dr. Grampachet said that I should not worry about my high-functioning autism unless I cannot do anything, for example, going to school. And they wrote back, I cannot go to school because I am not in the right side of my mind, right state of mind, and I am not fit enough for academic learning. So I would like some advice on what to do based on my situation at the moment. Now, just to start with, I remember the first email that we got from this person, which was beautiful and eloquent. And I wondered if you would address, because sometimes people say something to all of us, whether we're on the spectrum or not, that they like slap something on us that people widely refer to as a limiting belief.
Right.
And, you know, that people have been told, well, you can't do this because, right? And fill in the blank, and we've all had that. And I hear you when you say that you're not in the right state of mind and not fit for academic learning, that is what you believe to be true.
Right.
But based on this email and the other email that I saw before, boy, I don't see that.
I don't see that either. Yeah, and that, it's amazing what labels and what limits we put on ourselves and what limits other people put on us. But if you're able to type an eloquent letter into a talk show and ask a question and express yourself like this, you're definitely fit for academic learning.
Yeah.
Might need a slightly different format, maybe some accommodations. There's things that can be done, but don't let anyone ever tell you that you're not fit for academic learning.
Yeah.
If you can type and you can talk and you can do whatever you're doing, that's half the battle.
And I want to also express to you that sometimes for all of us, it's about taking small steps before we take the big steps. That 2 years ago, we had a young woman who wrote into the show and said, I don't know what to do. Please help me because I want to go and have a career and I want to live outside the home and I want to have friends and I want a list of things that she wanted to do. And she said, but my mom is concerned because once she was trying to teach me how to make something and I caught the kitchen on fire. And she said, now I'm not allowed to boil water. I'm not ever going to learn how to drive a car. I don't get to go anyplace. I have to stay at home. I don't live close enough to a college to go to college. My mother's never going to let me do anything. What can I do? And Dr. Granboucher took the question and said, well, make a list of the things that you want to do and how can we accommodate and what can you sit down and have a conversation with your mother about? And through like a series of 4 weeks, we had conversations back and forth. And what she got her mom to agree to was to let her take one class online.
There you go. It's a great start.
From her bedroom to take one class online, and if she could show that she was diligent about going to the class, and if she could pass it, then her mom would allow her to take more classes online. And just this last week, because I'm friends now with this individual on Facebook, she, had finished 2 years of college online.
No way.
And this last week was the first time that she attended a college class on campus.
All right.
That she
there you go.
learned how, over 2 years, learned how to take the bus. And mom saw that she could be responsible and do it and went to her very first class on campus. But it took 2 years. She got the thing that she wanted now, but it took 2 years.
Well, those were 2 years very well spent, weren't they?
Yes.
What else are you going to do for 2 years other than work diligently and slowly towards what you really value?
And I know that one of the things that, I'm assuming that it's the same letter that, one of the concerns was, I don't know if I'm depressed or not. But I would say to you that when we feel like we can't do something, that it's always going to be bringing up feelings of grief and loss, which are under the heading of depression.
Right.
And that there are some depressions that we need to meet with a professional and talk through, and almost all of us could benefit from that. And if you have the opportunity to do that, there are some people who need to go on medication for that. But in all cases, whether you're talking with somebody, using medication, there is another element that you need to take small series of actions on a regular basis.
Right. That's exactly right. And no matter how depressed you are or no matter how happy you are, the best thing to do today is to pick one small behavior that will move you a little bit closer towards what you care about and just do it. And that's exactly the advice that they give the most depressed people on medication.
Exactly.
And honestly, it's exactly the same advice you'd give the top student at Harvard.
Right.
Just pick something today that matters a lot to you and do it.
Yes.
Don't worry about 50 steps ahead. Think about today, one small step.
And I would say to you as a former teacher, whoever told you that you were not in a fit state for education doesn't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about.
I feel very confident in making that statement.
Yeah, and frankly, there's so many different formats and so many different ways for learning to occur these days. It's not like it used to be even 10, 20 years ago, whether either you fit the mold or you're out.
Right.
There's so many different ways to achieve your academic goals these days.
And if you want to test that, a site that Temple Grandin turned me on to that we use all the time now, Khan Academy, Khan Academy. Put it into your Google search to find it. Free classes starting from kindergarten through graduate level in so many different subjects. Start taking a class today and see how fit you are for education. You can do it from home, totally free. You can learn about math, you can learn about history, you can learn about graphic design, you can learn how to do computer programming. I took an animation class, computer animation class with my son last year. Learned so much. Free. There you go. And they'll track your progress for you. Write back and let us know if you do that and how it turns out. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm always inspired when you're here. We're totally out of time. I want to let you know that we've got an exciting array of guests for you next week. I don't have time to describe the whole thing, but if you signed up for our free newsletter, then you will get a notification on Monday that will let you know who's going to be on the show, and then you won't miss anything. And we've also got a new segment that we're going to be announcing very soon, so make sure that you're watching next week to hear all about it. We're out of time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.